Everybody knows that Portland is well known for being walkable. But what people don't realize is that if you live in the super famous walkable neighborhoods, you're gonna pay a walkability premium, sometimes in the tune of 150K, 400K. But here's the thing, there are neighborhoods in Portland that give you the exact same lifestyle and experience as these more famous walkable neighborhoods, but without that additional price tag. So you're getting coffee shops, you're getting parks, you're getting local amenities, boutique shopping, breweries, you're getting the Portland lifestyle, but you don't have to dish out an arm and a leg. And if you're moving to Portland and you don't know where these walkable pockets are, you could end up overpaying for walkability when you could have had the same lifestyle just a mile or two over and not pay that extra premium on top. So if you're thinking about moving to Portland and you need help finding affordable and walkable pockets of the city, reach out to me, 971-443-1770. I just moved to Portland myself a couple of years ago, and so I'm deeply familiar with trying to figure out what neighborhoods work for you and figuring out the best fit. So reach out, I'm happy to help you. I work with relocating buyers all the time. This is my jam, so let's do it. So let's kick things off with talking about what makes a Portland neighborhood walkable in the first place. When I think of walkability, I think the first thing that I think about is the ability to access your favorite restaurants, your local coffee shops, the library, your kids' school, being able to access those on foot if you want to. Another big factor is, what are the streets like? Are they flat or are they super hilly and you're gonna be out of breath just trying to go, a quarter of a mile one direction? So in a lot of these neighborhoods that we'll talk about today, mostly they're pretty flat. If you get out onto the west side of Portland, there's the West Hills, and as the name implies, those have some pretty steep grades. And so, those aren't, even besides the fact that they're more residential and not as walkable to begin with from a structural perspective, given the hills, inserting that in there, that just adds an added layer of complexity where you don't see a lot of people on foot in those neighborhoods. In my mind, walkability is also correlated to access to public transportation. So on the east side of Portland, generally speaking, you're going to have better access to the public buses, to the MAX, things like that. On the west side, it's a little more car dependent. Though, of course, there are buses and there is the MAX on the west side as well. But really on the east side, the public transportation, the use of public transportation is a daily fact of life for a lot of people. And folks are also making their own, methods of public transportation. So they are scootering around the city, they are biking, they are walking, etc. So it's not just limited to buses and the MAX. Another important factor here are the sidewalks. Number one, do you have any? If you, have a high-speed, low-visibility street and it's residential, but you don't have any sidewalks and you've got cars coming around the bend quickly, might not feel so safe walking through that. Generally speaking, the east side of Portland is laid out more in a grid system. And so you're gonna have more clearly defined paths of public transportation and more clearly defined methods of getting around the city with much more extensive sidewalks on the east side. So that can be really important depending on how you're getting around. It can really increase the safety of that process. I think another feature or function, part of feeling, if you will, of what increases the walkability of an area is just how reliant on a car do you feel? Do you need to pop in your car in order to get to the grocery store or get to your kid's doctor's appointment or drop your kiddo off at daycare, like whatever it might be? Is a car necessary for that day in, day out? Or are there other methods of transportation where you could accomplish the same outcome? So when we think about walkability and, why does this even matter in the first place? It's really about the experience that you're trying to have living in a particular area. So, what is your sense of community and how you move through that community, how does that contribute to it? What kind of lifestyle are you looking to live? Do you prefer to hop in your car and drive somewhere? Or would you rather, pop on the bike, throw your kids on the back of the bike and bike to the local playground? And I think the walkability of your neighborhood also adds to the community feel, right? If you are getting around on your own 2 feet, it can often offer a deeper sense of connection to where you're going versus the isolation of the car and the highway and that sort of thing. So I don't want to get overly philosophical, on the process, but how you move through your community impacts how you feel and how tightly you feel connected to it. And so it can be really important to consider if you're making a move. So the other important thing to unpack here is why the walkable neighborhoods that are famous in Portland are so expensive. So Northwest 23rd, Division, Hawthorne, Selwood, they're all highly coveted areas and they're in high demand. And with that means more buyer volume, which is going to be applying some upward pressure on home prices in those areas. These areas are also full of resales. It's not new builds in there, so there's constrained inventory, which means, again, with a higher buyer pool fighting over a smaller number of homes, it's gonna be harder to get in there and you're gonna pay more to do so. In Portland, you also pay a premium for proximity to downtown. So these inner neighborhoods are gonna cost you more than the outer neighborhoods. So all of these factors combine: proximity to downtown Portland, limited inventory, increased demand, highly walkable, typically associated with good schools. Again, these are going to put pressure on the prices in these areas and lead you to pay what you might call a walkability premium for these areas. All right, let's head into Montevilla. So with Montevilla, you might think that you would pronounce it Montevilla based on the way that it's written, but the name actually comes from Mount Tabor Village, the original name of the area, and everybody's decided to keep the hard pronunciation of the L's in order to preserve the original naming. Montevilla is one of Portland's fastest rising walkable areas, especially compared to the more inner neighborhoods. It's also been gaining a lot of traction for its affordability. This is a highly searched area for when people are searching and relocating here for affordable Portland homes. And it was actually in 2017, Lonely Planet named it as one of the top 10 neighborhoods to look out for. And that was in the total country, not just Portland alone. Montevilla was named in that top 10 for the United States. Because of how walkable it is and how many amenities it has, like bars and restaurants and boutiques and whatnot, it really feels like a city within a city. If you're seeking both community and value and a lot of fun stuff to do, Montevilla is a super good place to look if you're considering relocating to Portland. Stark Street is awesome. There's a lot going on. You can see the cars passing you by. There's people walking around. There's restaurants with outdoor seating. All of the outdoor seating that the businesses put up during the COVID period has been left up. So when the summer hits, it's really popping out here. On Stark Street, you're gonna find movie theaters, bars, restaurants, breweries, boutique shopping, kids, clothing and toy stores. There's really a ton to do here. So you're never going to be out of activities if you're living in this area. Median home prices as of November 2025 in the Montevilla area, it's about $425K, and that has appreciated about 3.4% year over year. So increasing in terms of the appreciation a little bit faster than Portland on average, which really, corresponds to the growth that we've seen in this area, but also still a significantly lower price when you look at Portland's median, and that can be in the $515 to $550 range. So overall, homes in the Montevilla area are going to be significantly cheaper than somewhere like a Laurelhurst or maybe a Selwood. So if you really want a walkable lifestyle, but you're priced out of some of those more inner neighborhoods, Montevilla can be a really good place to look. One thing to know about Montevilla, though, is that it has seen a ton of appreciation and growth over the last 5 years. It's been changing pretty rapidly, and so home prices are significantly higher in this area than they used to be. So if, the walkability and the downtown sort of strip, the main strip of Montevilla is appealing to you, you're gonna wanna look probably sooner than later to make sure you can still get in when it's not totally overpriced like some of the other parts of Portland. All right, so now we're at Montevilla Park. For all of my families out there and people with pets and people that like the outdoors, this is a super nice place to hang out. There's a pool that they fill up in the summertime, a lap pool for swimming, and it's got some sweet water slides on it for the kids and the adults. There's a community center here. I've actually brought my own kids here for they host little parties for the kids, and they have bouncy castles and toys that they can play around with in the gym at the community center. And there's just a ton of green space, so it can be a place to stretch your legs. All right, now we're headed into Kenton, which is known for a walkable downtown. It's a North Portland neighborhood, and it's also very well known for a very large Paul Bunyan statue. Kenton is definitely a more diverse neighborhood than what you're gonna find in Woodstock or Montevilla. So if that is something that's important to you in a neighborhood, that could be points in Kenton's favor. If you're looking for a walkable place with really good public transportation options, Kenton can be good for that as well. So it has the yellow line of the MAX running right through the middle of it on North Interstate. And so that can be an easy way to jump on and connect to the rest of the city without having to drive. So the median price point for Kenton is about $465K. That's actually down over the past 12 months, down about 3%. And so it's not necessarily seeing the same growth, for example, that Montevilla is, but it could be, if you're looking for something walkable and affordable, it could be a good option for you. Kenton has a great mix of coffee shops and restaurants and bars and parks. We're walking here in Kenton Park, which is a big, beautiful open area. There's playgrounds, there's basketball hoops, there's baseball diamonds, plenty of space if you've got kids or dogs or family. Woodstock is another highly walkable area of Portland, but it doesn't have the premium price tag associated with it that Division and Hawthorne sometimes both have. So within Woodstock, you're looking at a median house price of about $560K. So that's on par with Portland at large, but again, not as expensive as some of the more premium areas. If you do any sort of search for, Portland family-friendly neighborhoods or walkable neighborhoods, Woodstock is certainly going to pop up. One challenge with Woodstock, potentially, is that houses here do tend to move pretty quickly. So if you're a relocation buyer and you're not able to quickly access a home or put in an offer, it could be a little bit harder of a spot to get into. Woodstock's main drag, or corridor, if you will, is on Woodstock, as you might anticipate from the name. And I would say the sort of stalwart business that really anchors everything is New Seasons grocery store, which is a higher end, really sort of organic focused grocery store. All right, next up is St. John's in North Portland near Cathedral Park. St. John's is an affordable and quirky and historic spot that's got a super walkable main drag with tons of cute restaurants and coffee shops and places to go shopping. And my first thought upon getting out of the car just now was like, man, it smells good. The restaurants around here smell good. And St. John's is a little bit further out than a lot of the other communities that we've been looking for. But in that trade out for a longer commute to get to downtown Portland, you're picking up a lot of quirky community, sort of small town within a big city feel. And if you haven't heard of Cathedral Park, oh my gosh, St. John's Bridge in Cathedral Park is one of a kind. So we're going to check that out in just a little bit. When I think about St. John's, it's changing a lot, it's growing, and it really offers some of the best bang for your buck if you're looking for walkability, flat, cute, access to great restaurants, and affordable houses. The average price point out here, the median price point out of here is like $460, $470. And so you can really find some good options out here that give you a lot of the quirkiness of Portland without the Portland price tag. Cathedral Park is just something special. It's really one of my favorite places in Portland. So we've walked through some neighborhoods that have great walkability options without the expensive price tag, but it's not all perfect, right? There are some trade-offs associated with living in the less famous areas. So for example, some of these areas are gonna have less connectivity to the main transit hubs of Portland. So St. John's, for example, great area, quirky, cute, eclectic, good walkability on the downtown strip, but it's pretty far north in Portland, and so it's not nearly as connected to the main transit hubs as other parts of the city. Additionally, if you are way into the nightlife, you want to go out to the bars to all hours of the night, or you want to go out and see live music, if you live in one of these areas, because they're not as built up, because they're not as well known, it might have a quieter nightlife scene. So you might end up, commuting at night to go to the louder, wilder, funner parts of town because your area might be a little bit sleepier than you would hope for. Other things to know about these areas is that the home ages are gonna vary pretty dramatically. And you're like really famous areas like, Laurelhurst or 23rd, Northwest 23rd, you have a little bit more predictability in terms of what you're gonna encounter. But because these neighborhoods that we've talked about are changing a lot. You've got some new builds in there. You've got some, condos that have just been put up. You've got some townhomes that have just been put up. And then you've also got some like 1890s Victorians in there. So it's harder to have a consistent expectation of what type of house you're going to live in. And so, if the age of the home is important to you, it might take you a little bit longer to find what you're looking for in one of these central areas. The neighborhoods that we chatted about today, they can also have pockets of less desirable areas, depending on, what it is you value or what it is you care about. So when you are evaluating them, you need to think about what's important to you. Make sure you do your research if you care about, crime, if you care about car theft, if you care about houseless populations, like whatever it might be that scares you, it's probably worth doing some research about it. Getting hyper-local in your research as much as possible is really important because Portland can differ, pretty dramatically. 1 or 2 streets over, the whole block can change, the whole scene can change. And so having, a local realtor who can help you evaluate the area based on your criteria is another thing that's going to be really important. Now, I can't, guide or steer or do anything like that, but I can hear you out on what you care about and what matters to you. And then we can talk about that in relationship to the place that you're considering. So when I think of these areas in terms of being affordable and being walkable, and then trying to fit in, who might be a good fit for these neighborhoods, who I typically think of is first-time home buyers who are looking for a more affordable entry point price-wise, remote workers who might need to or not need to cross the bridges or, have a big commute and can live a little bit further out from the inner neighborhoods, families looking to relocate here who value walkability in that it helps them be out in their community and don't want the price tag of Lake Oswego or Beaverton or even the feeling of those spaces because they're very, very different than the neighborhoods that we've walked through today. And other people moving from major metros around the United States who really value community and walkability and are looking for something a little bit different than not the mainstream sort of core areas of Portland or the suburbs. So if you're thinking about moving to Portland and you're trying to figure out what is the right fit and coming up with your walkability strategy, if you will, some of the key things that I would think about are defining your top 3 walkable needs. So for example, do you want to be able to walk and drop your kids off at their school? Or do you want to walk to a local coffee shop? Or do you want to walk to a local library? Things like that can help you understand which neighborhoods may or may not be a good fit for you. If you don't have a car, or you're not planning on bringing a car to Portland or whatever your situation might be, planning to prioritize neighborhoods with good access to public transportation is going to be really important, both for walkability of the neighborhood and your ability to get around the city at large. Now, this might not be totally possible if you're relocating to Portland, but whenever possible, I suggest that people walk the area both at night and on a weekday morning so you can get a better sense of what the walkability feels like at different times of day, how crowded it is, etc. Because in some areas, right, if you're walking during the art walk of the month, it's going to feel very crowded, very exciting, but that's not necessarily representative of how the neighborhood is going to feel all the time. So you want to walk it at different points of the day, different times in order to see what's happening in the neighborhood. Do you like it? Do you feel comfortable with it? Is this something you'd like to do day in, day out? And last up, in Portland, if you're moving here, one thing you absolutely have to understand is the realities of east-west traffic patterns over the bridge. So we have the Willamette River kind of running down the middle of the city. There's 12 bridges that cross it. And if you need to cross the bridges during rush hours, it can significantly add to your transit time. So understanding where you are, where you need to commute to, how you plan to move about the city is all very important, and understanding, even if a neighborhood is walkable, if you can't get to where you need to go without it being a total slog, it's probably going to wear on you over time. So it's something that you always need to consider as you're thinking about where to move within the city. So again, you're moving to Portland or considering moving to Portland, you're trying to find a more walkable area. It's good for you, your family, your situation, whatever it might be. Count me as boots on the ground. I'm happy to answer questions and do research to the best of my ability to help you find more information. Again, my goal is really not to sell you on any one particular area of Portland, but to give you enough information and enough context about the different neighborhoods of Portland relative to your goals that you can make an informed decision. So I'm here for you. My phone number is 971-443-1770. and I would love to chat with you, talk the whole relocation strategy. I went through the process myself. There's a lot of factors in it. And so I'm here to support you.